Is Purdue about to land a big-time transfer in the middle of the season? Find out today on Locked On Boilermakers.
You are Locked On Boilermakers, your daily podcast on the Purdue Boilermakers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Locked On Boilermakers here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, the #1 sports podcast network. I am your host. I am Nick Arvin. I cover the Boilermakers every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I also write about Purdue for Purdue 24/7. And we got a fun episode coming your way today. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So today is going to be a fun one, like I said, because yesterday, a big-time transfer, the 2024 Ivy League Player of the Year, Caden Pierce. He announced his final 3 teams where he's trying to transfer to, and Purdue was one of the final 3. And this is a guy that Matt Painter has been on since his name was in the portal. Matt Painter loves this guy. Matt Painter wants this guy. Matt Painter views this guy as a future starter going into 2026, a guy that can jump right in. So the value is certainly there, and we'll talk about Caden Pierce today. We'll also talk about Eastern Illinois. They played yesterday. What Purdue needs to do to go in and handle business on Friday against that team. We'll finish it off talking Big Ten football this weekend. It's rivalry week. I'll get my picks, my predictions, so make sure you stick around for that one. But let's go ahead and talk about Caden Pierce. Now, this guy, he's really good. Like I said, the 2024 Ivy League Player of the Year. And when you talk about Purdue, when you talk about what could be potentially enticing for him to come to Purdue, the first thing I want to mention is he grew up about 80 miles away from Purdue. He grew up in Illinois, so just a quick little drive away from Mackey Arena from West Lafayette. Certainly some family demographics there, and it makes sense that maybe because of that geographical reason, Purdue would be enticing for this guy. And not just that, his brother is very notable. His brother plays in Indiana. His brother is Colts wide receiver Alec Pierce. And you can't overlook that. 45 minutes away from your brother who plays in Indianapolis, that has to be something that Matt Painter is able to pitch to this guy. He's able to pitch to Caden, and that's something that you can say. And it just feels like, in terms of where his family is at, a lot closer to Mackey. I feel like that's why Purdue kind of still in this, and why Matt Painter has been so hot on this guy, because he knows that. He obviously knows that he's going to be able to make a pitch to Caden Pierce surrounding the family demographics, surrounding his brother playing in Indianapolis. And in terms of that, that's not all that Purdue has to offer, because it's largely considered that this guy, Caden Pierce, he's going to jump in next year if he decides to come to Purdue, and he could likely be the starter next year because he is really, really talented. Ivy League Player of the Year for a reason. In 2024, he averaged 54% from the field, 34% from 3. He rebounded the ball 9 times, 16.6 points per game. Of course, from Glen Ellen, Illinois. Caden Pierce is a really, really good player, and I think that he would definitely be a good addition to this team. So who else is kind of in the running for this guy? Well, Duke is certainly in the running, and I'd say that UConn is also in the running. While I think that UConn is still in the running, I'd say that UConn is probably around 3rd, whereas Duke and Purdue are neck and neck. If I had to give a favorite right now, I would say Duke, but like I said, Matt Painter has been in on this guy since the very beginning. He's been pitching him all season long. And something notable to talk about when we consider Caden Pierce. So typically there is a set transfer portal at the end of the season. And so this is kind of unprecedented, and where this guy is trying to transfer out mid-season. But the reason behind it is he redshirted this year, decided he wasn't going to play for Princeton. Because he is a graduate student, he has the ability to transfer midseason. Although he won't be able to play until next year, the ability to have a redshirt saves him a year of eligibility. Also, while being able to enroll at whatever school he chooses to transfer for the spring semester, where he'll be able to practice with the team and get ready for an extra year before the next season. So Caden Pierce is certainly in a unique position to succeed no matter where he goes, because he does have the ability to practice for an extra year before he actually has to play for the team. So certainly an advantage in the way that Caden Pierce has set things up for himself. And I think, like I said, it would be a really good addition for Purdue. I know that we have Jack Benner going into the future, and I really do view Jack Benner as a guy that can start at that power forward position. But I also think that there's a scenario where you can play both of them. You could play Caden Pierce in that starting lineup. You can play Jack Benner in that starting lineup. Yes, they give you similar skill sets, but I don't see anything wrong with that. I think that those guys could play really good basketball next to each other. I think that, honestly, they could be pretty dynamic against each other. And Caden Pierce, what he does well is rebounding the basketball. And next year, when we lose Oscar Clough, when we lose Trey Kaufman-Renn, I think the ability to bring in a top rebounder would be a really good asset for this team. I think that is something that is incredibly underrated, the ability to get not just a forward that can rebound, but even a little bit of a smaller forward that can rebound. When we talk about Duke, we kind of pitch what Purdue has. Matt Painter has been really in on this guy. He's been there since the start, before anybody on Caden Pierce. Yes, his brother, his family live just a little bit away from Purdue. That's what Purdue has to pitch. In terms of Duke, this is the team, like I said, is probably right up there with Purdue, maybe a little bit ahead right now. And the reason is because his old teammate plays at Duke. Jack Scott is a Blue Devil right now. In terms of the pitch that Duke and John Shire have for Pierce, that's pretty well it. He's really close with some GAs over there. He's close with Scott. And I think that's kind of what Duke's pitch is for him right now. The ability to plug in with your former teammate to start next year for Duke. I do think that Duke has a little bit more at the forward position going forward into next year, whereas Purdue, we do lose a Trey Kaufman-Renn. We do lose a Liam Murphy. We do lose Oscar Clough, although he's not going to be that forward spot. But Purdue is going to lose more guys going into next year than Duke is. So the opportunity for Pierce to plug in and start and get more minutes, it's going to be more of an opportunity at Purdue than it's going to be, say, a Duke or a UConn. UConn is a little bit different because they do have Caravan, who's going to be gone next year. And that's kind of their pitch, is where Caden Pierce, he can fill in for Caravan. He can take the reins, fill in, and be that guy going into next year. But all three of these programs realize what Caden Pierce is. They realize that this guy is extremely talented. And with Xavier Lee, that was the first one that come out of Princeton. The first guy, he's at Florida and kind of struggling right now. So, I mean, it's easy to say that Caden Pierce is going to struggle, that he's not going to be able to adjust to the Big Ten. That's an easy argument to have. However, just because it happened to one guy, just because one guy is struggling, doesn't mean that Pierce will. They have completely different skill sets. And the fact that Purdue is in on this guy, the fact that UConn is in on this guy, the fact that Duke is in on this guy, all three of the biggest programs, all three of the best coaching staffs in the nation want to get in on this guy, want to get him in the transfer portal, and want to bring this guy over for the spring semester, get him ready, get him practicing, and prepare him for 2026, because Caden Pierce is going to be a really big role. He's going to play a very big role on whatever team he chooses to go to. I think if he ends up going to Purdue, it's going to be massive. It's going to be able to give you the luxury of not really having to find a guy that can rebound, because Jack Benner isn't going to be as good of a rebounder as Pierce is going to be. And while I think that Jack Benner definitely has more potential to break out, maybe even to become a better player than Caden Pierce one day, I do think that Caden Pierce has the experience. He has the veteran leadership. And given the opportunity, I think it's the right choice to want to bring Caden Pierce in, to want to have him start, to want to have that former Ivy League player of the year in your starting lineup, getting you minutes. So when Trey Coffin-Wren leaves, you don't take as much of a jump backwards in terms of rebounding from that power forward position. I think Caden Pierce would be a really nice addition if Matt Painter's able to get it done, and he's certainly been trying to get it done. He's been in on this guy ever since he put his name in the portal. Matt Painter wants him. Purdue wants him. Duke wants him. UConn wants him. That decision should be made soon from Caden Pierce. We'll have all that going forward, all the recruiting updates, all the transfer portal updates on Locked On Boilermakers. But here on this next segment, I want to talk about Eastern Illinois a little bit. We'll have a full preview out later this week, but I want to give a little bit of a look as to how Eastern Illinois played last night, how we can prepare going into that game on Friday. That's here next on Locked On Boilermakers. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for especially when your team's making that late push. You have a shot at a better payout and keeps every game exciting. So right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Think Purdue covers against Eastern Illinois? Think they cover against Indiana? Well, if you know, you make that pick. So head on over to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Eastern Illinois will pay a visit to Mackey Arena on Black Friday this week, and I want to give a little bit of a look at that team. If you guys are just now seeing us, if you guys are new, haven't subscribed yet, please make sure to do that. It really helps us out a ton, and we definitely appreciate that. Likes, comments, it all means a ton to us. So thank you guys once again. But let's go ahead and talk about Eastern Illinois. Let's talk about the Panthers. So they play yesterday, and I'll give a little bit of a look around at their schedule so far this year. They play at Valp. Game number one, they lose that one 66-63. They beat Nichols and Tiffin. Those are their two wins on the year, with a 20-point loss in Notre Dame, a 45-point loss to Kentucky, and a 21-point loss yesterday to Central Arkansas. So we can kind of tell that, yes, this Eastern Illinois team, they're a mid-major and maybe not the best mid-major in the world. I do expect that line via our friends at FanDuel to come out at about 30 points in favor of Purdue. When that line does drop, I do think that Purdue will be a pretty heavy favorite. So that kind of gives us the read that Purdue should be expected to win this game. We should expect Purdue to win this game, and we should expect them to win it with a good level of intensity by a good margin, because that's kind of what Kentucky's done. That's what Notre Dame's done. That's the standard when playing off against a team like Eastern Illinois. And I'm not trying to get onto Eastern Illinois, make them feel bad, say that their team is terrible, but they're not very good by any stretch of the imagination. If we look at what happened yesterday against Central Arkansas, the way that Eastern Illinois got beat, well, the three-point percentage was a big one. They shot the ball 21 times from three. They only made it 5 times. This is not a team that is going to shoot the three ball particularly well. So far this year on the season, they're shooting the three ball right around 27%. So that kind of gives you a good read of the shooting capabilities of this Eastern Illinois team. They haven't really found their stride quite yet with the three ball. They haven't been able to convert. And that's going to be something that will really hurt Eastern Illinois, and something for Purdue this year that we've seen. They play really good against teams that struggle against shooting the three ball, because we rebound the ball at such a high efficiency. We are so efficient on offense that if you're not converting on your three-point attempts, if you're not making your shots, you're going to have a really tough day against the Boilermakers. And I do expect that to happen for Eastern Illinois. I expect them to have a bit of a tough day against Purdue. If we look at some more numbers, the rebounding numbers really stick out to me. Purdue rebounds the ball about 43 times a game. And that number is a little bit skewed because Trey Coffin-Wren wasn't playing the first 2 games. Eastern Illinois only rebounds the ball about 30 times a game. not great by any stretch of the imagination. And the reason for that is they don't really have a whole ton of size. Cooper Jacoby is one of their forwards. He's 6'7" from Sellersburg, Indiana. Terry McMorris is another one of their forwards. He's 6'7". He's a sophomore out of Oklahoma City. And that's about it in terms of where their forwards are that get the most minutes. They have two guys that are 6'7" without really a traditional big man. So you can kind of tell why this team does struggle to rebound. I think Trey Kaufman-Renn and Oscar Clough are really going to be dominant on the boards against this Eastern Illinois team. And I could see it getting pretty ugly pretty quick if they're able to maintain that momentum, if they're able to get efficient on the offensive side of the ball while Eastern Illinois is missing threes like they've done, only converting on a quarter of those shots so far this year. Their leading scorer is a guy by the name of Zion Fruster. He's a 6'2" guard out of Douglasville, Georgia, averaging 17 points a game on 40% from the field. He's kind of their go-to guy, their leading scorer by a decent margin. Their next leading guy is only averaging 12 points on the season. Like I said, he's going to be a guy in Zion Fruster that he's going to try to lead this offense. He's going to try to get buckets, but at 6'2", not even shooting the highest efficiency at 40%, which it's fine. It's okay, but you're not going to beat Purdue shooting 40% with your leading scorer. That's just not going to happen. And I expect us to see that against Eastern Illinois. I don't know if Fruster is going to be able to find a whole lot of success. And so far this year for Purdue, their strategy has been if you're able to limit other teams' number one players, well, that tends to bode well for you, because if you're able to limit those number one guys, well, that gives you opportunities for them to have to play through other people. We saw that with LeBaron Philon against Alabama. We saw that with JT Toppin against Texas Tech. Both those teams typically play through those two guys. Purdue found a way to limit them, and those teams struggled. I'm not comparing Eastern Illinois to either of those teams, but what I am saying is that if they're able to limit Zion Fruster, which I do believe they'll be capable of doing, it's going to be tough for Eastern Illinois. It's going to be tough for the Panthers to really develop much of anything on offense. That is the expectation that I have for this Purdue team going into this game. And the thing that I want to see is I don't want to see Purdue sleepwalking on Black Friday. It's after Thanksgiving. Danny Hurley actually said something about eating turkey and how that affects the way that you play on the court. Don't know if I completely buy that. Maybe there is some truth to that, but in general on Friday, I don't want to see this team sleepwalk into this game. We saw it against Memphis, where Purdue, they just played down to Memphis. They didn't shoot the ball at a high level. They couldn't really get a whole ton of momentum, got into foul trouble early. That type of thing really costs your team in terms of not being able to get momentum. And this Purdue team is a team that really thrives on momentum. They love when they have it. When they have it, they're hard to stop. Offensively, whenever you're able to get to the rim, score at the level that you're capable of, and then once you start getting the stops on defense, the team's almost unstoppable. But it's a direct result of having that momentum. So when you play down to opponents, you don't have that. Purdue, you're going to be favored against Eastern Illinois. You're a much better team. You cannot play down against Eastern Illinois. Take what you learned against Memphis and Baha Mar and apply it this Friday against this team, because you don't want to see that happen again. You don't want to get yourself in a position where this game is closer than it should be. So that's going to be a big thing for me, is for Purdue just not playing down to your opponent. The last thing that I do want to mention is for Braden Smith. I want to see Braden Smith start to have that breakout game. I want that one for him, and it could happen against Eastern Illinois. I want that to happen for him against Eastern Illinois. Against Memphis, he shot at 2 for 18. He really hasn't had that game where he just breaks out as a scorer yet. He had a couple nice ones earlier in the season, but efficiency-wise, he has struggled a little bit to start this year. I expect Braden Smith to have a really big day against Eastern Illinois. I think that this guy is motivated. I think that he views this game, the Panthers, as an opportunity to kind of get back on track, to get this thing going, and to lead his team to a victory while scoring a ton of points. I think that Braden Smith has 20 points against Eastern Illinois, plus eight or so assists. I think it's going to be a really big day for Braden Smith, dependent on how much he depending on how much he plays, because there is an opportunity where Matt Painter takes him out early because Purdue does have quite a bit of a lead. If that is the possibility, or if that is what happens, I don't think that Braden Smith will have those crazy amount of numbers because you're going to need quite a few minutes to get that done. But I think that in the minutes that Braden Smith plays, I think that if you look at his per 36 after the game, it's going to be really big numbers because I think he has a chip on his shoulder. I think he's ready to show out, and I think that Braden Smith is going to have a really big day against Eastern Illinois on Friday. Like I said, that preview episode will come out tomorrow, so make sure you watch that. I hope all of y'all have a very happy Thanksgiving. In this next segment, I want to talk about Big Ten. Rivalry week is here. I'm going to give my picks, my predictions, and end the show out with the bang. Stick with us. That's here next. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, well, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real, actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, and prices jumping at the checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices. With no surprise fees, what you see is what you pay. I love using Game Time because it's the easiest way to get into Mackey. It's the easiest way to get out to Ross-Ade. It's very accessible, and with Game Time, you can use that too. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go download Game Time today. It's rivalry week in college football. It's rivalry week in the Big Ten. It's feast week, but I want to go ahead and give my Big Ten predictions today before we get out of here. We're going to go over all the games, and let's go ahead and start out with Indiana versus Purdue. That one's happening on Black Friday, 6:30 at Ross-Ade. Indiana is a 28.5-point favorite. I do think that Purdue will keep this one close in the first half. I don't think that Indiana is going to be able to execute. Well, not that they won't be able to execute, but I don't think that they're going to execute as well as they typically do in the first half because it is a rivalry game, because there is going to be a lot of anticipation. And I know it's easy to say that when Purdue got beat 66-0 last year, that they're going to compete in the first half. But I do believe that this team is different. I do believe under Barry Odom, this Purdue football team is going to show more fight than it did last year under Ryan Walters. I think that Barry Odom is going to want to show that he deserves another year. I think he's going to want to show that this team has more fight than what they showed. So I do believe that Purdue's going to come out here fighting, that they're going to be able to keep it close for the first half of football. For the second half, I don't really know about it. I think that anything can happen. I do think that Indiana will likely start making their throws, start getting downfield. And I think with Francisco Mendoza, the Heisman front runner, he's going to be hard to contain for a long period of time. So with that being said, I do believe that Purdue likely is going to lose this game. I do think that they likely cover, though, within 28.5, probably about a 21-17 point loss against Indiana is what I'm projecting in this game. But I still hope it's going to be a competitive football game. I still hope that old bucket game is going to be competitive because that's what it deserves to be. This rivalry is better when that game is fun. I do think Indiana wins that one, but I think it's going to be within the cover range and closer than people expect. Iowa versus Nebraska. Dylan Raiola is out for the season, and Nebraska looked terrible last week against Penn State. Don't know about Nebraska at all the rest of this year. I don't think that they're going to win this one. I do think that Iowa will win this game, improved at 8-4 on the season. Although I'm not the biggest Iowa fan, I think that their offense is just terrible. But their defense is amazing. Their defense is really good. And Nebraska, that team struggled very heavily last week against Penn State. I don't see how they rebound against a team who, in my opinion, has an even better defense in the Iowa Hawkeyes. I think that Iowa keeps this one low, and I think that they win pretty big, maybe even shut out the Cornhuskers. Going on Saturday morning, the game, Ohio State and Michigan. Now, this is going to be a fun one. I do see a world where Michigan could win this game, and of course they can win this game because anyone can win the game. That's why it's the game. But it's at the Big House this year. which is why I kind of feel like Michigan could win this one. However, I just think it's time for Ohio State to get that monkey off their back. I think that Ryan Day has prepared all season long for this game. I think that this is the one that he wants more than anything. And I do believe this year they have the team to do it with Julian Sayin, Jeremiah Smith throwing the ball around the yard. I think that they'll be able to make enough explosive plays while that Buckeyes front seven will be able to get to Bryce Underwood enough, get him a little bit frazzled. I do think that Michigan will struggle a little bit against Ohio State in this game. So I think that Ohio State will be able to pull it out in the big house and finally get that win over Michigan. Oregon versus Washington. This one is really interesting because I do think that Washington is also capable of winning this game. Absolutely. Oregon only a 6.5 favorite in this one. But I just think that Oregon is too good. I saw Washington last week, albeit with a lot of starters out against Wisconsin, just get beat really, really bad. And Oregon is a much better team than Wisconsin. I don't care about the starters being in or out. Just realistically, Oregon is going to be a much better team than what Wisconsin brought in, despite the starters being out. So I think that Oregon is going to get it done against Washington. I do think that they cover in this game. It is a small spread simply because it is at home for Washington. 6.5 in favor of the Huskies, or in favor of Oregon, rather. I think that Oregon covers that pretty easily. Wisconsin versus Minnesota. Minnesota actually a 1.5 point favorite in this game. This is my lock of the week. I think that Wisconsin is one of the hotter teams in the Big Ten right now. They're not good by any stretch of the imagination, but they've won the past couple games. I think they looked really, really good last week against Washington. I think that they're going to look good again this week against Minnesota. Kind of to my last point, I think that Washington is a better team than Minnesota. So it makes sense to me that, of course, this Wisconsin team is going to continue to go in and then beat that Minnesota team this week. So I like Wisconsin to cover their plus 1.5. I like them to win outright in that game. Penn State versus Rutgers. This one is going to be a little bit interesting. Both of these teams playing for a bowl game, which is kind of crazy. I think that Penn State wins this game, and I think that they win it pretty easily. And the reason I think that is because of Terry Smith, the head coach over there at Penn State, interim head coach. I think that he wants that job. I really do think that he wants that job. He was wearing the Joe Paterno pin on his chest last week after their win. And a lot of it comes down to there is a Paterno crowd and there's a James Franklin crowd at Penn State. And one crowd likes one group of guys, one crowd likes a different group of guys. And the Paterno crowd really has a lot of say in terms of the hiring process at Penn State. So kind of going after that makes sense for Terry Smith when he's trying to win games. That team has really rebounded under him as the interim head coach. I think he's fighting for the chance to coach this team going into the future. And I don't expect this team to miss a bowl game. I think that Penn State sneaks into a bowl game with a 6-6 record with a win over Rutgers. Michigan State, Maryland, honestly, 3-8, 4-7. It doesn't really matter. No implications on this game. I'll take Michigan State in this one. Really kind of a pick 'em at 3.5. But Malik Washington hasn't been good this year. I thought that he was going to be better than he was, but he has definitely played worse and worse as the season has gone on. Michigan State has really never taken that stride into competing the way that some people may have hoped that they would this year. So both of these teams certainly struggling. I would take Michigan State in this game. UCLA, USC. I do think that USC wins this game. Lincoln Riley may be out of there after this year. Who knows about that one? But USC, they're too good of a team to lose to UCLA. Maybe if this was 8 weeks ago, they'd lose. But I don't think as of right now, this UCLA team is ready to compete with USC. I just don't see that happening. And then finally, last game of the day, 6:30 Saturday on Fox, Northwestern, Illinois. Illinois is a 6.5 point favorite, and I am going to take an upset in this game. I have Northwestern upsetting Illinois. Last week, Illinois looked terrible, and I don't know if they're going to be able to rebound. Really, I just don't know if they're going to be able to rebound. So I do think that Northwestern will upset Illinois. I think that Preston Stone will be able to get it together enough to be able to win that game. He's impressed me, gotten a little bit better throughout the year, beat Purdue. So I think that Preston Stone will be able to get that offense going. I think that they'll be able to upset Illinois in the last game of the season. But no matter what, it's certainly going to be a fun one. I wish all of you guys a happy Thanksgiving, and I appreciate you guys joining into another episode of Locked On Boilermakers. Thank you for making Locked On Boilermakers your first listen today. For your second listen, consider checking out Locked On Big Ten as Craig Sheeman breaks down the most exciting conference in college sports, from the rivalries to the championships in every game in between. Find Locked On Big Ten on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. That's part of the Locked On Podcast Network. As always, it's your team every day. Thank you, guys. And of course, boiler up, hammer down.